So I want you to just take a second and imagine trying to gather up, like, every thought you've had over the last 5 years.
Oh, wow. That sounds...
Right. Every massive failure, every quiet little success, all your weird perspective shifts, just taking all that raw, unfiltered experience and trying to lay it all out on a table right in front of you.
I mean, I think most of us would just see this terrifying mountain of chaotic, overlapping noise.
Exactly.
Like, we experience so much on a daily basis that our own history basically just becomes a blur.
It's absolute information overload, but, of your own life. And honestly, that is exactly why you're here with us for today's deep dive.
Yeah, because you want to understand your life.
Yeah.
You want to extract actual knowledge from your own experiences, but you definitely do not want to drown in the process.
Right. And I mean, we all try to categorize our lives, right? The planners, we download those really complex tracking apps, and it works for, what, a week?
If that.
Yeah, until life gets messy again, and then we just abandon the system entirely.
And then you just feel guilty about that blank, really expensive leather journal just sitting in your drawer.
Exactly. But today, we are not looking at a new productivity app. We are not doing another exhausting bullet journal method.
No, we have a really fascinating stack of sources for this one. It includes this deeply personal, hand-drawn visual diagram and some heavily philosophical notes.
Yeah, they outline the system the author calls concept connection.
Right. Or, as they beautifully refer to it in the notes, a loom for semantic weaving.
A loom. I love that. So our mission here today isn't to give you another daily checklist to stress over. It's really to unpack a conceptual tool that's designed for what the sources call emergent order.
Emergent order, yeah.
It's a framework for, flowing with life, for processing the sheer volume of your own existence without getting bogged down in the endless day-to-day chatter.
We're basically looking at a way to take that mountain of chaotic noise we were just talking about and actually weave it into a meaningful tapestry.
Which sounds amazing. But to understand how this system actually organizes in chaos, we first have to build the physical metaphor that's detailed in these visual notes.
Right, because the author literally mapped this out as a massive circular loom.
Yeah. And, well, any physical loom relies on two main directions of thread to create fabric, right? You'll have the vertical threads, which are pulled tight, and they provide the whole foundation. So in the system, there are exactly 40 of these vertical threads. The author calls them the warp threads, and they represent these enduring concepts.
Enduring concepts, yeah. So these are basically the stable anchors of a human life. Things like stability, vision, trust, habits.
Okay.
These are conceptual buckets that are always going to be relevant to your experience, like no matter what specific job you hold or where you live.
Right, they're the constants. And then weaving horizontally across those vertical strings, you have the weft threads.
The weft threads, yeah.
And these represent what the author calls domains. So essentially, these are the passing epochs, like the specific years or the major projects of the author's life.
They act as lenses, right?
Yeah.
Through which those enduring concepts are viewed.
Exactly. And the sources actually map these domains out chronologically so you can really see the progression. The tapestry begins with a domain called 2021 default.
And then the horizontal thread actually shifts colors in the diagram,
Yeah.
moving into 2022, my HSU.
Right, which the notes indicate stands for Hagwon Startup, a Hagwon being a specialized intensive cram school in South Korea.
Okay, got it. So from there, the domains just continue to flow into new phases. You see 2023 TESOL, meaning the author was focusing on teaching English to speakers of other languages.
Yeah.
Then it moves into 2024 Burton School, up through 2025 AIMS, and finally into this era labeled 2026 Ready.
It's so cool because every time the author enters a new phase of life or takes on a new major project, a new horizontal thread passes across the loom, intersecting with those 40 vertical concepts.
I mean, it almost sounds like a piece of music.
Oh, wait, I like that. How so?
Well, think about those 40 vertical concepts as the baseline, right? It's steady, it's repetitive, it's basically the underlying heartbeat of the song. But the domains, those passing years, and the changing jobs, that's the melody playing on top.
Oh, I see.
The melody's constantly shifting and evolving, but it only makes sense, like it only has a discernible rhythm because it's playing over that exact same stable baseline.
The structure provides the meaning for the melody. That's actually a great way to think about it, because without the baseline, the melody is just, isolated notes floating around in the air.
Exactly.
But, looking at the list of these 40 enduring concepts, some of them make total sense for a journaling system.
Sure.
Like stability and habits. That's standard self-reflection material, right?
Yeah, totally.
But right next to them, the author includes these wild concepts like prey and predator.
Oh, yeah.
They include brace for impact, the unknown, and the elements. Like mixing these esoteric, almost survivalist ideas with something as mundane as habits just seems bizarre for a daily reflection tool.
It does seem a bit intense at first glance.
Yeah.
But the author explicitly describes each of these concepts as a spindle.
A spindle.
Right. And the notes specify that they are singular, yet broad enough to cover all aspects of life. I mean, think about it. If you only use mundane functional concepts like habits or metrics, the entire system becomes totally sterile.
Yeah, it turns into like a corporate performance review of your own soul.
Exactly. And nobody wants to write a quarterly performance review for their own personal life.
No.
Please, no. So by including a concept like prey and predator, you open up a totally different psychological space. The author actually used that specific thread to explore wildly diverse topics. Everything from like designing non-player characters for a game all the way to understanding predictive processing.
Predictive processing.
Yeah, it's the cognitive science term for how our brains are constantly trying to guess what's going to happen next based on our past experiences.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the concepts are constraints, right? But they constrain movement just enough for a pattern to arise. They aren't boxes designed to trap your thoughts. They are tension points.
Huh?
They basically give the mind something from to push against.
Okay, I get that. But, and maybe this is just me, building this beautiful 40 concept architecture sounds totally exhausting in practice.
Oh, for sure.
Like if I have to update a matrix of 40 philosophical variables every single day, I am without a doubt going to quit by Tuesday.
And the author clearly anticipated that exact kind of fatigue. The pacing guide outlined in the sources is built on absolute flexibility.
Okay.
You are never forced to sit down at a desk every morning and write a comprehensive dissertation on your life.
Well, thank God, because the notes do say you can engage with the Loom in a single day, right?
Right.
Like just writing whatever is top of mind for all 40 concepts in one giant marathon sitting.
Yep. Or you can spread it over a week, like hitting 5 to 7 concepts a day.
Or a month.
Exactly. You can even stretch one single domain over an entire year, just producing language for 1 or 2 concepts a week.
And I noticed the phrasing the author uses regarding the writing itself. They call it producing language off the cuff.
Off the cuff, yeah.
So this isn't about crafting perfectly polished, edited prose. The system explicitly encourages what it calls the random walk.
I love that. Wandering is totally allowed. Like, randomness is a core feature of this system, not a bug to be ironed out.
But wait, if the whole system is designed as a tool for emergent order, doesn't wandering around and spitting out off-the-cuff language kind of defeat the purpose?
Not so.
Well, it just feels like throwing buckets of paint at a canvas and hoping, if you step back far enough, it accidentally looks like a masterpiece.
Well, it would be just throwing paint if there were no canvas at all.
Oh.
And this really highlights the crucial balance between chaos and order in this whole framework. The random walks, the unedited language, the stream of consciousness through your day, that represents the chaos.
Right. It is wild and unpredictable.
Exactly. But it works because of the Loom tension.
So the randomness is entirely absorbed and made useful because those wild threads always have to pass back through the exact same stable conceptual anchors.
You've got it. You can take the most chaotic, bizarre, random walk through your Tuesday.
Yeah.
But when you sit down to actually capture it, you still have to pull that experience through the spindle of trust or vision or clearings.
Right.
So the structure tames the chaos without killing the underlying creativity. There's actually a line in the source material that synthesizes this perfectly.
What is it?
The author writes, "The self is the shuttle, always moving, never fully fixed, but continuously weaving coherence."
The self is the shuttle. Wow, so order isn't something you force top down onto your life.
No.
You don't declare who you are and force your actions to align. Order actually emerges. Like, the pattern of who you are only appears because of the repeated return to those 40 concepts over a really long period of time.
Because most people try to organize their lives by creating an idealized version of themselves. They say, I am a highly productive morning person now, and then try to force their daily reality into that mold.
Which never works.
Right. But this system says, just live, take the random walk. But when you return, tie what happened to these 40 posts. Do that long enough, and the true pattern of your identity emerges completely on its own.
I mean, viewed that way, it sounds like this peaceful, highly evolved journaling habit.
It really does.
But, and this is where it gets intense, delving deeper into the source notes reveals this wasn't really born out of a casual desire to be more organized. There is a much darker, much heavier origin story here.
Yeah, that context totally changes things.
It explains why this intense loom tension matters so much to the author.
Right, because the context provided in the notes reveals this project evolved over years of consideration and what the author describes as walking off several social cliffs, becoming an outcast pariah in their communities of practice.
Walking off social cliffs, becoming a pariah, I mean, that is heavy.
Very heavy.
And when you look at the evolution of the domains themselves, you can actually track this fallout in real time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it starts in 2021 with the default setting. Then in 2022, alongside the Hagwon startup, there is a subdomain specifically called breaking points listed under the conversations concept. By 2024, the timeline shifts to Burton School, evolving into being in the world and ultimately pushing toward ready in 2026. You are quite literally watching the rebuilding of a fractured life.
Well, because when you lose your community of practice, you lose the mirrors that reflect your identity back to you.
Wow.
The institution stops telling you who you are, what your value is, and what your daily rhythm should be. Conventional journaling falls apart in those moments because it assumes a relatively stable self is just trying to track meetings or gym sessions.
Right. When you are socially exiled or walking off a cliff in your career, you don't have a stable self to track anymore.
Exactly. You have to weave yourself back together from scratch.
And suddenly those 40 concepts take on a totally different weight. Ideas like clearings, obstacles, safety, and brace for impact, they aren't clever philosophical buzzwords anymore.
No, they're literal life rafts.
Right. What keeps you safe?
Right.
Shifts from a theoretical writing prompt to a daily survival strategy. It makes me wonder, does a conceptual system actually need adversity to become this robust?
It's an interesting question. What we're really looking at here is a form of adaptive survival architecture.
Adaptive survival architecture.
Yeah. Many conceptual systems, like the pristine ones you buy in bookstores or learn in those expensive corporate seminars, they're built safely inside functional institutions. They're designed for optimization, right? Like tweaking a process by 5% to be more efficient. But this Loom was forged through exclusion. It was built as a way of sustaining identity entirely outside of consensus.
And that is exactly what gives these specific threads their emotional density. The system didn't just organize the author's thoughts. It functioned as the literal scaffolding that held their mind together during this profound social and professional dislocation.
Totally. And after surviving those social cliffs, after repeatedly passing these colored threads back and forth across the Loom year after year, domain after domain, the user is left with a tangible product.
Right. The sources focus really heavily on the verbal first nature of this tool as its ultimate yield.
Yes. The author notes that words are the fastest form of communication, but beyond just speed, they emphasize that words are modular. They are compressible, recursive, and expandable.
Okay, let's look at how that actually functions within the Loom itself.
Sure. So imagine jotting down a single off-the-cuff sentence under the concept of safety back in 2021. Maybe that sentence is just about needing financial stability after a career setback. Because it is captured and anchored to that specific warp thread, that thought doesn't just disappear into an old notebook.
Right, you don't lose it.
Exactly. When you return to the safety thread in 2022 during the Hagwon startup, that original sentence recurs. It actually expands into a paragraph about setting boundaries with colleagues.
Oh, I see where this is going.
And then by 2024, that paragraph has evolved into an entire personal philosophy about maintaining internal trust, regardless of external environments.
So the Loom physically turns fleeting, chaotic language into reusable, compounding structure. That is incredible.
It really is. And the visual progression outlined in the diagram illustrates this thickening process brilliantly. In year one, the tapestry just has sparse threads, a few scattered thoughts. By year two, you have more crossings. Year three, actual patterns start to appear in the weave. By year four and beyond, you have a dense, meaningful fabric.
And the image specifically notes that gaps and tears are normal. They are repaired over time.
Which is such a lovely thought.
Yeah.
But that visual of the thickening fabric leads to the core realization of this entire framework. The compression artifact.
The compression artifact, let's break that down. I think about it like a zip file on a computer, right? You take gigabytes of raw, heavy data videos, massive documents, high-resolution photos, and you compress it all down into one tiny, manageable icon.
Right.
You can move that icon around easily, but the moment you click it, all that massive data expands back out into its full form. This system creates zip files, but for human lived experience.
That is a perfect analogy. Because of the way the loom categorizes time and experience, a single enduring concept becomes that exact zip file.
Wow.
The sources explain that pulling just one thread, let's take the concept of trust, instantly retrieves thousands of stories. It pulls up the raw emotions, the years of shifting context, the failed classroom experiments, the moments of isolation, and all those evolving symbols.
It's just wild to think about, like to unzip the word vision and instantly see every iteration of your own goals over a 5-year span right side by side.
Yeah.
You would see 2021's roadmap sitting right next to 2022's childlike vision, sitting next to 2024's sensed but not surprised.
Wow.
It's all right there on the exact same physical line.
You don't have to go digging through a stack of old journals in your closet trying to piece together what you were feeling 3 years ago.
No, the loom presents your entire evolution perfectly aligned.
And it accomplishes this without forcing your brain to actually memorize any of it.
Yeah.
That is the true power of distributed cognition.
Distributed cognition.
Yeah, it's the practice of offloading the heavy burden of memory into an external architecture. Like, you do not have to carry the active weight of 5 years of complex emotional, social, and professional history in your head.
The loom holds it for you.
Exactly. You just have to know which thread to pull.
That is so powerful. We are constantly taught that we need to figure life out, to have a 5-year plan, to solve our personal development from the top down. But this system proves you don't need to solve it. By simply weaving your daily experiences, your chaotic random walks, through stable anchors, the meaning naturally emerges completely on its own.
The structure does the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
It allows you to flow with external chaos,
Right.
to engage with the unpredictability of the world without ever losing your internal structural integrity.
Amazing. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring this directly to you. Think back to that terrifying mountain of chaos we talked about at the very beginning, your last 5 years of noise. If you were going to build your own personal loom today, what would your warp threads be? Like if you had to pick just 5 or 10 enduring concepts that your specific life constantly cycles through.
The themes you always come back to, no matter what job you hold or what city you live in.
Yeah, what would they be? What are your stable anchors?
Identifying those personal threads is really the very first step toward allowing your own emergent order to take shape.
Exactly. But before you go, there is one final thought to mull over. We talked about that profound idea from the source. The self is the shuttle, constantly moving back and forth across the loom, weaving the threads of your life into coherence. But any physical loom, no matter how large, is ultimately a finite space. So what happens when the fabric becomes so incredibly dense, so thick and rich with history, repaired tiers, and overlapping colors, that there is simply no more room left on the frame?
Yeah.
When the tapestry of an entire era of your life is finally complete, do we just sit back and admire the patterns of who we used to be? Or do we have to tear the whole thing down and build an entirely new loom to figure out who we are becoming next?